Debate.
So it's the doctor's fault.
Debacle.
So what sort of things had to be sacrificed?
Famously, Sky TV.
Desertion.
Sorry to
I'm
have
well,
kept
thanks.
you.
No, not at all. I know you've been in Normandy.
Yeah, it all just ran out. There was...
These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, a show that looks and laughs at UK politics. The week started the same way the last week finished, talking about Rishi Sunak's D-Day desertion.
Very nice to see you. Hey, sorry to
I'm
have
well,
kept
thanks.
you.
No, not at all. I know you've been in Normandy.
Yeah, it all just ran out. There was...
To be fair, the original overran. It was all supposed to be over by Christmas. Thankfully, the British Army of 1944 didn't have an ITV interview to get to. But he's very sorry, right?
When I saw him at lunchtime on Friday, and this is a brutal thing to say, Kay, I don't really think he was that sorry. His tone was exasperated.
Everyone is still talking about his decision to miss the end of D-Day. Wouldn't it be easier?
No, everyone's not talking about that. The media are talking about it. Let me tell you.
So do you think it doesn't matter? But veterans are talking about it.
There was just a, why are you doing this to me?
We should just leave it as him having apologised, and we should try and accept his apology.
He apologised. He said it was wrong. Let's get over it.
As for the man at the centre of the conflict, he wanted to let people know, just like those brave souls on Normandy beaches 80 years ago, he's had his own struggles.
When you are wealthier than the king, what do you do day to day to make sure you're still in touch with the kind of struggles ordinary people face? What did you go without as a child?
We went out with lots of things. There'll be all sorts of things that I would have wanted as a kid that I couldn't have, right? Famously, Sky TV.
From the rising of 21 Jump Street to the going down of Janice Dickinson's modelling agency, we will remember him. But despite what Liam Fox says, it wasn't just the press obsessing over this. The public too found ways to vent their anger.
Prime Minister, have you blown the election?
Nadine, is that you? Sunak then took part in Sky's leadership debate and then tried to debate the facts, but the facts weren't having any of it.
But we are now making progress. Okay. And actually, the number that you gave is just over 200,000 lower than it was a few months ago, because now...
It's gone up from when you made the pledge.
Yes, it has. It has. Yeah. I'm being very clear about that. But now it's coming down. Everyone knows the impact the industrial action has had. That's why we haven't made
so it's the doctor's fault. The point... PM, the point is that when you made the pledge, there were several NHS industrial disputes happening at the time. You still made the pledge and the numbers are up.
What you're now seeing is that the numbers are coming down. And we are making progress.
Junior doctors.
I might have not done brilliantly at maths at school, but I know that 7.2, 1 million, 7.5, it's going up. Let's move on.
Yes, the NHS waiting lists go up, then they come down. So they were up, then they've come down. They may go up again, but no matter how many times they go up, at some point they will come down. And that's the bit that the Conservatives want all the voters to focus on. Think of it like a ball. You can throw it in the air and it will come down. Or balls. Think of what Rishi Sunak is saying as balls. But he did manage to finish the week on an accidental high, as his mannerisms, lack of awareness on personal space, and just plain weirdness managed to freak out the Italian white nationalist Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in what looked like a live-action version of a new Pepe Le Pew film. Nice work. Sunak was there along with 6 others who, like Sunak, through no choice of their own, are looking at coming to the end of their political terms. Time, gentlemen, please. But Rishi Sunak did manage to manage expectations.
Today has been quite a good day for Rishi Sunak. I think he hasn't, punched a pensioner or kicked a golden...
Yet. But there's still another couple of weeks to go. And if Granny's got a guide dog, then that's 2 for 1. Rishi Sunak then spent yesterday at the Trooping of the Colour, where he's expected to break with tradition and stay for the whole thing. Also in the news, the party's manifestos have come out. The Liberal Democrats were first out of the block with theirs pointing heavily to care. Increased number of GPs, increase in personal care in England, and reforming the carers allowance. Then there was the Labour manifesto, and they decided to put their #1 policy on the front cover. Yeah, we get it. Jeez. The most famous of the internal ones, though, is the 20% VAT on private school fees, and also changing non-dom status for the wealthy, and the creation of GB Energy, a publicly owned energy company. Then, hot on the heels of the pair of them, was the Conservative Party's manifesto, with their message of, really? You're still going to vote for us? After all we've done to you, have you not been paying attention? And they have gone with such vote winners as the flights to Rwanda, more prisons and cuts to welfare and civil service numbers, very much dragging the UK into the 18th century there. There was just one problem with all three, and it's a bit of a common theme.
We all know we're paying more tax. The lines were going up. Under this latest manifesto, they don't go up as quickly. So definitely the Conservatives are cutting taxes versus the rises you were going to have. It's accelerating less quickly, but we will still be paying more tax.
I mean, this is quite extraordinary. We're going to have 1,000 extra beds, 8,000 new GPs, up to 1 million people once they've passed testing that they will have free personal care, minimum wage for care workers, mental health counsellors in every state school, increased carers allowance, all through £9 billion a year.
This green prosperity plan, now it's not the 28 billion that Ed Miliband previously talks about, but still, it's quite a lot of extra investment that goes on that side, the spending. And then you've got these windfall taxes, extra windfall taxes on the North Sea there. And you can probably notice the difference here, can't you? Suddenly, spending is bigger than the money coming in.
If only they'd done maths until they were 18. But despite all the huff, puff and snuff going on in the elections, it's looking like Sir Keir Starmer who will get the keys to political power in the UK.
It's not about rabbits out the hat. It's not about pantomime. We've had that.
Oh, no, we haven't. So what of Sir Keir? Well, you may not be aware of this, but his dad was a tool maker. Yeah. In fact, it could be said he also worked in automations.
You seem more like a political robot. How are you going to convince others like me to vote for you?
Well, the most... Look.
So, as the polls do seem to point to him being the only one to win, his promises seem to be a little bit more, shall we say, manageable.
What is in Labour's plans? Well, now we have the document and we have some of the numbers. I can show you them. But actually, these numbers weren't quite as big as a lot of people might have been expecting. I want to compare these Labour plans, that's the manifesto in numerical terms, with what we saw from other parties. OK, so there's Labour, but just look at the difference between these bars and the Conservatives and the Lib Dems. Look how much smaller this is. And look at Labour now compared with Jeremy Corbyn's Labour in 2019 and in 2017. Look how much smaller. It's completely changed.
Rishi Sunak threw the kitchen sink at his manifesto. You won't even take the safety catch off yours.
It is a serious plan for the future of our country. I'm running as a candidate to be Prime Minister, not a candidate to run the circus.
Oh, well, someone's got a chip on their integrated circuit. But this is fair enough. Yes, Sunak threw the kitchen sink at his. But all that happened is he got wet. Starmer has to come into government with the country having the highest tax rate in 70 years, public services on their knees, those that are left that is, and a government that is no doubt going to leave the incoming Treasury with the note, "We burnt all records and you can't prove nothing." Like Sunak, he's got to manage expectations. Unlike Sunak, come the 5th of July, those expectations won't include making a pledge to the family to visit Disney World every summer. The Lib Dems' Ed Davey seems to have found a rather novel approach to campaigning.
Well, hello from Torquay in Devon. Sir Ed Davey, who you can see over there on the sailing boat, hot-footed it down here last night from London, where he had been launching his manifesto. Today he's been trying his hand at sailing. Now, we're not quite sure yet how this links to the subject of GPs.
It doesn't. Any more than clambering through an assault course has anything to do with the public care sector in England. Or appearing as a catwalk model on GMB and looking like the first person in your party to be pickpocketed abroad has anything to do with rejoining the single market. But it seems to be working. A snap surprise poll now has put the Lib Dems in second place, making them the official opposition to Labour, and the Tories coming third. So, is there a common thread to some of these stunts?
So you might say it needs something of a sizable swing. Confident of achieving that sizable swing, as you can see behind me, swinging beside me, is Sir Ed Davey.
Yes, don't worry, I'm not going to make some cheap smutty pun about swinging polls. But it's looking like the Lib Dems could do quite well in the upcoming general election. And it's certainly looking like Ed won't be struggling with ED on the 4th of July. Anyway, speaking of stunts, Nigel Farage was one of 7 representatives of political parties taking part in ITV's election debate. They also included Penny Mordaunt, who showed that she's dealing with the election campaign pretty well, really.
Higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes, higher taxes.
She sees debt, people. And it's good Nigel was there, as did you know what did manage to raise its head again? It's Brexit. That's what I'm talking about. And I have no problem saying it as well. Brexit. Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. See? Easy. For others, on the other hand, not so straightforward.
What has happened to Labour? After Brexit, I worked with Labour colleagues of yours on a document called Securing Wales's Future, which proposed getting back or staying in the customs union and the single market so at least we could look after our trade interests. What happened to you? Why won't you even talk about that in the Labour Party now?
Angela Rayner, respond directly to that point. First of all, nobody thinks people should be crossing on small boats and putting their lives at peril. That's why we don't think these gangs should be allowed to do that. That's why we're putting the money into stopping that from happening. And in terms of, what we're going to do to support, sorry, I forgot what your other part of the question was, but...
Okay. Look into my eyes, and when you hear the word Brexit, you will completely ignore it and talk about something completely different. 3, 2, 1, you're back in the room. But ITV wasn't quite ready to let this monumental topic slide just yet.
Yes or no, if elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Stephen Flynn.
Yes. Oh, well done, Stephen Flynn, who was representing the SNP and who came dressed as an undertaker and then proceeded to bury Farage.
And when Nigel Farage tells you all that migrants are making you poor and they're the problem, don't believe him. Do you want to know the biggest problem facing the UK economy right now? His pet project of Brexit. £40 billion.
And hearing that word seems to do strange things to Farage.
Brexit. £40 billion.
I don't even want to think about what that sound means. But Nigel Farage did manage to get a laugh from the audience.
And Labour,
And he made a career doing that.
Repeatedly. I know I've actually always told the truth. Always told the truth.
I'm guessing people remember you saying this, Nigel.
If Brexit is a disaster, I will go and live abroad. I'll go and live somewhere else.
Nick Ferrari certainly does.
Are you still suggesting Brexit was a success? Do you remember a promise you said when you had a show here?
That Brexit has not been implemented. That is true. It's not a failure of Brexit. Mass migration.
I think the buses do run in France after
mass
lunch and the stores are
migration.
open.
Farage very much sticking to the script. Mass migration. That's it. Do you remember when we used to have a go at Boris Johnson for his 3-word slogans? If we carry on with this level of dumbing down, the 2029 general election slogan will simply be vote for me because being cornered by radio presenters called Nick seems to be a bit of a curse on old Nigel. Here he is facing questions from Nikki Campbell.
What is it about the murderous dictator as an operator that you admire?
How many years has he been in power? You can recognise the fact that some people are good at what they do, even if they have evil intent.
So, in fact, what you admire most about Putin is your common character traits then. By the way, apparently when at boarding school, Nigel Farage used to take great pride that his initials were the same as the National Front, which they are. They are also the same initials as Nazi fuckwit, nonce friend, and of course, if you combine the last 2 words into one, now fuck off. And what of the new fuckers Reform Party?
Support for the Reform Party is a little bit like the River Thames in the Middle Ages.
Full of
That is to say, it is wide, but it is shallow.
Oh yeah, right, good point. And they're also full of shit.
Penny, would you allow Nigel Farage into the Tory party?
So, could it happen? Could the milkshake Mussolini join or even lead the Conservatives? Well, Andrea Jenkins certainly thinks so, and has put him on her campaign leaflets. Suella Braverman has called for the party to embrace Nigel Farage. And having the far-right parties clubbed together will certainly make it easier to pull the bigotry into one easy vote. A new poll has also come out showing that, in fact, Reform have overtaken the Tories by 1 point. But experts were quick to point out that this was still comfortably within the margin of error. And if you support either party, then that is quite some margin of error. And that's it. Now time to talk about Jonathan Gullis looking for re-election. Let's be honest, what else is he going to do? Well, I suppose we'll find out in 3 weeks' time, won't we? He addressed some people at his local church hall.
A deterrent. And the Rwanda scheme is indeed that deterrent that's sat on the table. But despite over 100 times Labour MPs lining up to vote against it, despite the fact they get their lefty lawyer mates at every opportunity to block up the courts.
Looking a little bit empty on the front row, which I'm guessing is why the camera is at that angle. And even then, that's somewhat sparse. I counted 4 legs, but I'm unsure whether that's 2 voted for Gullis or one of his relatives. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed these videos, then please do like, share, subscribe, and hit all the notifications button. And I'll see you all next week. Take care.